From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
and this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by
Vitamin energy.
The vitamins.
The energy.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi.
and Corey Clark.
So let me get this straight. You say now you love me.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. Coming up on today's show, we're going to put 30 minutes on the clock. We're going to wrap up the ACC Tournament, Leonard Hamilton era, as well as the first loss of the season for Florida State on the diamond. Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it and take it, everybody. Sip the juice. After a 14-day clinical trial, many overwhelming majorities, plurality of the participants agreed to the following things, like 82% said, yeah, I feel energized very quickly after taking that shot, and I feel less fatigued. 78% said, yeah, that was very effective at reducing brain fog. Give it a try, everybody. Vitamin Energy, sip the juice, vitaminenergy.com, shake it and take it. World's first and only clinically proven energy shot. Vitamins and nutrients, no sugar. Warchant.com, the ultimate Seminole sports source. Cranking stuff out for you folks on Tuesday. Ira Show fell up there in Charlotte as the Leonard Hamilton era came to an end. Corey Clark writing stories about baseball and basketball remotely in Atlanta. Tom Lang in the threads, getting things popping off. I'm at Hauser. It was a fun time. You should join our little website. That's not really that little. It's huge. Come hang out, everybody. And you get to speak to Corey Clark directly on the message boards. Man, you were a demon on the forums last month, Corey. Way to be, big dog. How are you?
All right, so that had to be the first time I ever beat Ira in posts on a message board.
Yeah.
I crushed it. I crushed it. Now, a lot of that is, the threads, but I'm trying. I'm doing my part, buddy. I'm doing my part.
What were you engaged in?
This month is off to a slower start.
Okay.
A lot of it was, just mixing it up on the tribal council, but then also, transcribing the post updates, the updates from baseball, from basketball. It all adds up, man.
Okay. All right. Well, that said, let's go ahead. 30 minutes on the clock. It just started 2 seconds ago. Let's start off with the basketball game. Florida State valiantly fought, it seemed like, till the end. I didn't get to watch a lot of this one, or really any of it at all. I was at Hauser, Corey, but 66-62. It felt like if they were able to pull something off crazy in that last 30 seconds, minute of that game, who knows, man? Maybe they could have hung out in Charlotte a little bit longer than they wanted to, but they fall to Syracuse 66-62. You've had so many good things to say about Coach Leonard Hamilton. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add. Obviously, I think Ira's going to probably have some stuff from Charlotte overnight that will be posted on the website that probably goes further into that. Luke Loucks, the new coach, was on hand to watch Leonard and the Noles. I don't know, just I wish they would have at least put up more than 62 on the board, but such is life.
Well, yeah, but they made 2 3-pointers, Aslan. It's 2025.
Only took 10, though. Only took 10.
Still, 20% ain't great. But, I mean, I guess it's better to shoot. If you're only going to shoot 20%, only take 10 shots and not 30, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how that math works. But, yeah, it was a gross loss. It was the, after what I thought was the best win of the season on Saturday, I thought that was the worst loss because that's the worst team I think they've lost to. Maybe there's somebody there I'm forgetting. Boston College, I guess, is close. But Syracuse is god-awful. They're terrible. Malik Ewan might as well have just stayed in Tallahassee. That was a pretty gross performance on his part all around. And it's like, yes, Leonard is Leonard, man. Like, after the game, I don't think I've ever seen this. And I don't know that you were watching the broadcast, but, like, they interviewed the losing coach after a game. They don't ever do that. And it was Angel Gray, who's a former Nole, I guess always a Nole, but she played basketball at Florida State. She's an ESPN sideline reporter. Taylor Tannenbaum's an FSU grad. She was on the desk for the ACC network. But Angel Gray interviewed Leonard Hamilton after the game, and it was probably a 5 or 6 minute interview, and you never see that. The winning coach wasn't interviewed at all. The kid that scored 27 wasn't interviewed till 10 minutes later. They interviewed Leonard Hamilton, and with good reason. And I thought, as much grief as we give the network for what it was and how long it took, they do this stuff pretty darn well, man. I thought that was really well done on their part. The 2 announcers, can't remember your name, sorry guys, they really gave Leonard his due when the game was over. Made it feel like a big moment because it was stepping down of a coach like that, and then giving him a platform for 5 minutes to just kind of talk about his career and how much it's all meant to him was really neat. And it was going to end. It was going to end up there, right? Like there was no doubt. I guess I don't know. It would have been cool for them to at least win a couple of games, but for what? To what end? Get on with it, Luke. You're on the clock, dog. It's on you now. Clean this mess up because it is a mess. They have some work to do, and we can get into that contract. But that became public on Tuesday. They have plenty of work to do. If that was an audition for who wants to be on his team next year, I'd say I guess Daquan Davis passed and moved on. We'll get a call back. I don't know about anybody else that was on that floor, man. That was a bunch of pretty gross all around. Jameer had a Jameer game. He scored 16 points. Had 11 rebounds, which was nice. But most all his points came from the free throw line because he's drawing fouls left and right and trying to draw more and blah, blah, blah. Ewan was horrible. Ewan got outplayed significantly by Syracuse's big man. He went literally Aslan. He hit 2 baskets in the first 4 minutes of the game. Ewan did. And you're like, oh, here we go again. Here we go again. He didn't score another basket till there was 9 seconds left on the putback to make it a 1-point game. Just was non-existent. And I shouldn't say that because he killed him on defense. So again, that goes back to the discussion about like I hate to put so much on him, but it's because he's so talented. When your most talented guy is one of the best players for the other team, which Ewan was with his defense and the way he played offensively, just so passive, and then defensively not really doing much at all, that's a problem, and that's Luke saw that firsthand. So, again, it'll be very interesting how he evaluates this roster that he just saw up close for 2 hours on Tuesday night.
How about that new coach, Luke Loucks, signing his contract? Details released. First year this season. First time as a head coach.
Yep.
$2 million American dollars.
Yep.
Bumps up to 2.175, 2.35, 2.55, and then 2.75. So 5-year deal, Corey. I mean, the numbers seemed bigger than I anticipated by far.
5-year deal, what is that, like 11 mil all told, 11.5? I didn't do that math real quick in my head, but it seems like it's something like that, like 11.5 for 5 years.
Somewhere around there. I can maybe do it as I let you go here and speak to it. But I don't know if I'm more shocked by the volume of the dollars or the 5 years.
Well, 5 years. Look, if it's do we know the buyout? I assume it's whatever's left on his contract.
Or like 80%. I think Norvell's is like 85% of what's remaining on there.
So you would probably owe him, I don't know, man, $3.5 million to go away if you didn't like what he'd done after 3 years. But
yeah. 11.8. Good math, Corey.
Close. Well, not really. I wasn't that close. Yeah, that's very surprising. I would have thought. I don't know who Florida State thought they were bidding against. Maybe Texas was calling for Luke Loucks, but I highly doubt it. That seems like a big number to me. Let's see if he does the Norvell route, though, right? Let's see if he invests back in that bad boy. You're guaranteed to making $11.8 million. Why don't you go whittle a couple mil to make sure you have a starting backcourt next year or a starting front court, whatever you need, Luke. Or go get some shooters. Please go get some shooters. But yeah, that's very surprising. That's on par, literally on par with what Leonard was making, and that seems astonishing to me. As I was saying, I thought he'd be half of what Leonard was making. I thought that, but I thought that number wouldn't be anywhere close because I thought he'd be so grateful to take the job, and I'm sure he is. But then I wouldn't have thought the negotiations would have gone very long. I'd have been like, you're offering me 1 point. Okay, accepted. Got it. I'm your coach. I'll take it. I would have shaken your hand before the sentence was done. But Luke drives a hard bargain, apparently. Yeah. And is going to be, going to be $12 million richer by the time his contract's through.
Not sure how accurate the USA Today database is for coaches, but it had Leonard at 59th in the country at $2.25 million. Shaka Smart was 60th at $2.217. I mean, there's a pretty precipitous drop, though. It looks like Minnesota's coach made $2 million, and after that, it kind of dropped below $2 million. So that's like 63rd in the country. So, I mean, somewhere in the 60s, I guess, making $2 million a year.
So top 20%. There's 330 teams, right?
Yeah.
But I assume all those guys most of those, except for like Mark Few and a few others, no pun intended, are Power 4 guys. So he's probably close to the bottom in Power 4, I guess, or wouldn't you think? I mean, I don't know what the Vanderbilt coach is making or what Mississippi State's coach is making or Boston College, but he's certainly not in the upper end of Power 4. It's just surprising. I thought that would have been where you'd have saved some money and gone after some players. But again, maybe he's investing that back into some players. It wouldn't make any sense Luke Loucks had to know what the resources are for basketball, and maybe he's planning on raising much more money than that anyway, so it's not that big a deal. He'll be worth the money because he's going to raise so much money. We'll see how it plays out. But if he can't raise a lot of money, you got some. And that's not. I'm not joking. Like you've got to go get players, man. Let's just think about the guys that Leonard didn't pay, quote unquote, that allegedly didn't pay.
Right.
There were what was he? The kid Nickelberry was $250,000 for that guy. What's a guy that can actually play going to be worth? If that's the gauge, as Nickelberry at $250,000, the kid that hit like 11 threes all season and averaged 3 points a game or 4 points a game, what's it going to be to go get the kid from Furman that's averaging 15? So it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting. But maybe he's going to raise a ton of money, and this is a great investment. Either way. I mean, I was going to say it can't be worse than what we've watched the last 4 years. I guess it could be. It just doesn't feel like it could be. That was Tuesday night was a reminder that while I'm very appreciative of Leonard Hamilton and what he did for this program, what they did for this program, and all the great moments, especially around the turn of the decade that we got to experience. It was time for a change. That team played with no heart at the start of the game. I didn't play hard at all. Syracuse was all over them. Jameer Watkins didn't shoot until there were 6 minutes left in the first half. Ewan didn't want to be there, and those are your two best players. It's time to flush out some stuff, man, and get a different spirit in here. Obviously, you didn't watch the game either, but all Syracuse did, their best player, Starling. When the game was on the line and Florida State kept cutting it to 4 or 5, they got their best player. He was being guarded by Justin Thomas, who's one of their good defenders, or Daquan Davis. All Syracuse did was run a screen to get Jerry Dang involved. Jerry Dang then has to guard Starling. Oh, there's a bucket. Oh, there's another bucket. Oh, there's another bucket. They just keep picking on the guy because they just run a screen. They just do a screen, and then because Florida State switches, your worst defender, or at least the guy that can't guard Starling, is having to guard Starling, and he can't. And of course, Ewan's nowhere to be found to try to protect the rim, and it's an easy bucket, and they lost the game. That was one of the reasons.
Do you have any confidence that they'd be able to get under the screen though? And defend it?
I would have no idea. They don't even practice it. But how would we even know? They don't even practice getting around screens. They're just like, it's yours.
Right.
And again, it works when it's Devin Vassell switching with Patrick Williams. Or I should say this. This is another guy, and I can never remember his name. It's
Maluk.
Is it Maluk?
Yeah.
Not Malik. Maluk. They both might be back, but Maluk is a guy that can do that stuff, man. He makes life miserable for people defensively. I wonder what Luke will do with him, if what his role would be on a Luke Loucks coached basketball team, if there is one, because that's a guy that always plays hard, that is a bear defensively. And when Florida State went on a 10-0 run, and it was a 10-0 run that took 6 minutes because it's Florida State. Syracuse went 6 minutes without scoring a point in the second half, Aslan, and they were still up 6 points, or 7 points. But it was with Maluk on the floor because that guy just shuts down things, and he challenges things. He switches. He can stay with guards. It's hard to shoot over the top of him. So we'll see. I think he's the guy they could keep. Taylor Bowen, don't know, was really disappointed with how he finished out the season. Daquan Davis, I think there's something there, but he doesn't shoot well either from the three. But he's a good free throw shooter, so he's got that going for him.
The annual squat party went down, I think, yesterday for Florida State football. Video up there on the social media of theirs. We weren't invited to it, but we're never invited to the squat party. Question is, will we be invited to watch practice this spring and this season, Corey? I think you and Jeff spoke about this on Headlines. Valued subscriber, member of warchant.com, as well as our Warchant members only on YouTube, our guy James B. Come on, guys. So many times you've talked about how Mike Norvell needs to change things up and do something. But when it comes to closing practice to the media, all of a sudden it's a bad look. Do I really need to list off all the championship coaches that did not allow the media at practice? He did edit this later to say, just remember, I love you all.
Oh, that's good. He threw that in there.
Yeah.
Look, what you either believe in, and this was what me and Jeff were getting at. And look, I'll stress this till I'm blue in the face. It makes my life easier. I can be up in Atlanta more with my son. I can go to practice at 11:30 and talk to players and talk to coaches and be done with it. I don't have to be there at 9. I guess I don't have to be, but I don't have to be there at 9 or 9:30 and watch 2 hours of practice. But you either believe in your foundational principles or you don't. The reason and it's not like, oh, I open practice. I used to run a wing T. Now I'm running 4 wide. Everybody evolves offensively, or they evolve the way they do things. But the reason Mike Norvell always opened practice was because he wanted everybody to see how hard his team was practicing and how hard they got coached. He wanted to show off and say, look, I'm an open book. I want you to watch how we do things because I believe in how we do things. I believe that it works. I'm not ashamed of hiding anything, or I'm not ashamed of anything, or I'm not scared of anything. I will be completely open and honest and upfront and transparent, and you can watch all the practices you want because I'm not worried about it because I believe in what I believe. And then one bad year, he bolts, huh? That's the kind of guy, you know what I mean? Like that's the kind of dude that the dude that just has a bad. You either believe in it or not, man. Like it would be like this year if he just I can't even think of an equivalent. Like didn't care about special teams. Stopped devoting 30 minutes to special teams, which he very well might and probably should. But if he didn't,
now that we're gone, now we're not going to.
Yeah, but is special teams a priority or not? Yeah. That's all. It's not about literally. It's not really about getting to watch practice. It would be a bummer, but it is what it is. And we also don't know. We have no idea if that's going to happen or not. It's more about go back and watch the 2020 press conference when he told us that practice was open and why it was open and why he believed in opening practice to the media. And then ask yourself if that's not the case 5 years later. Well, why not? You believed it then, but you don't now? Is it one bad season gets you to change your whole philosophy? Because that's not what great leaders are, man. I think Mike Norvell has a chance to be a great leader. I don't want a leader who just, as soon as he has a bad year, decides, I don't believe in that anymore. How about just get a better football team? How about get better players? You got better coaches, we think. Get a better football team. Closing or opening practices has jack shit to do with winning football games. Period. It has nothing to do with winning football games. Last I checked, the 2023 team went 13-0. Every single practice was open. So tell me how changing it now to where practice is closed affects anything. As far as like you listing Kirby Smart or Nick Saban or this guy or that guy. Mike Norvell went 13-0 with an open practice. He has a bad season and all of a sudden we're closing it, we're shutting it down. I'm just saying, I know it sounds like I'm mad. There's other stuff going on in my life, James B. I promise. This is not anything to do with you. There really is. I can't get into it, but there is. But so that's why I'm angsty anyway. But it's more about like you be consistent. Be consistent. Win or lose, be consistent.
Just to be contrarian on this, like, listen, here's something. When I was not working for Warchant, but I was still obviously...
We're also getting ahead of ourselves, though, right? Like, we don't know that this is even a thing.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he'll open a few. That's fine with me, man. Open up 6.
Yeah.
You don't have to open up all of them. Yeah.
But, when I was devoted to still, obviously, I still am devoted to Florida State. It's my alma mater. But when I was not covering the team on a day-to-day basis as part of my job, I was still depending on Warchant to give me access. And I remember, there'd be some peppering in of comments, during 15 and 16 and the, going into the 2017 season just about, hey, listen, we don't know exactly what's going on because we're not at practice because we don't have access to practice. And a little bit of lamentation, a little kind of passive-aggressive remarks made about the access to practice. And I remember me on the outside, I'm like, I don't care, man. Just win football games. Like as a fan, as a consumer of your guys' content on warchant.com, I still didn't really care. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. I wasn't comped anymore. I was paying for my membership. I'm like, I still want to read, war rooms and recruiting news. And obviously there are things that go on outside of practice that Ira knows about that he would share on the boards. I'm like, yeah, man, if Jimbo's like, I don't want you guys to practice, I'm like, I don't care so long as you're winning. So, I mean, that's one part of it. The other part too is like, maybe he's being a little bit selfless here. I don't know if he's being too deferential. And again, this is total conjecture.
Isn't that kind of, to me, that would be the issue. Is that even
honestly like if like say let's say Gus or I don't want to put a name out there, but the coaches as a whole, they put it up to a vote and they're like, hey, we'd rather not have media around. They're distracting or they're sharing stuff without us realizing it in the moment or something like that.
Yeah, I think what would bother me about it if he was being deferential to Gus Malzahn is like, whose program is it, man? Right. You built your program on some foundational things. One of them is he is the most open and transparent with the media, which again is the fans. Like it just is. It's the conduit to the fans. So he is the most open coach in the country. I think that's a huge feather in his cap. I think the reason they lost 10 games last year was because he was terrible at evaluating and bringing in the right players and developing. It had nothing to do with what happened on the baseball breezeway, overlooking the practice field, watching practice. And so that would concern me if he would just that's all. It would just be a bit concerning. Again, they go 11-1 next year. Nobody cares. Nobody cares that we didn't watch practice in 13. Nobody cared about no. It just doesn't matter. But Jimbo never had open practices. Right. Norvell did for 5 years. Yeah. And then it would be weird that he brings in new coaches and all of a sudden, I don't want y'all to see anything. It just would be to me, it would make me wonder about, how steadfast he is in things. But again, who cares? Win games. He also donated, $4.5 million. So he cares about winning games. I get all that. And this is a preemptive argument that I have no idea if it's even going to happen or not. Right, it's just it's if it happened, it would bother me not because I don't get to watch practice anymore. I promise it's not that. It's because it would be going against what he laid out as one of his foundational principles when he took the job. Just like he wants to be the best special teams in the country. What does he say? Like special teams is the heart of a football team or whatever he said. If you're good at special teams, it says what kind of team you are. It defines what kind of team you are. And, I think that he believes that. Is Malzahn going to get him to change that too?
Oh, we got to talk about some baseball, but I wanted to get your thoughts on this from that squat video. At the end of it, had a little soundbite from Josh Storms where he talked about, listen, everything you accomplished here today, you couldn't have done by yourself. Like, look around. It's the people around you that have helped lift you up and done this. Show some love to the people around you. Like, the top, what do you think, will that be one of the top three narratives either we come out of spring talking about or that we're going to hear from Norvell and this coaching staff, do you think, just about trying to build more kind of like cohesion, chemistry, brotherhood? Will we ever get any kind of maybe insight into maybe a lack of that last year? I scratched that one. At least that's going to take us too far down the rabbit hole. I think hearing the way Josh Storms talked about that, I think that's something we're going to hear consistently throughout spring practice, just about how much they're trying to make this team come together, build chemistry, because I think they're by extension of that, that's what was lacking last year. That led to the 2-10, the slide, and not being able to stop the bleeding.
Look, man, I think the thing that was looking back in hindsight about last year, you had and we've talked about this, but you had a lot of entitled players that had no business being entitled. They had accomplished nothing, but they felt like they had. I mean, yeah, they got T-shirts and I guess they got rings, but they weren't the reason they were wearing the rings. And I'm talking about the guys that returned. And the dudes that came in, just, they most of them weren't good fits or weren't good enough. I think there was some hubris to think that we'll take some projects and assume we're going to turn them into great players, or they had high star rankings coming out of high school. They're probably pretty, whatever it was, they misevaluated. But you had a lot of guys that hadn't done a lot. That so the point being, you're back to hunger again. Like, think about the mindset. I know money matters, man. I know money talks. But think about the mindset it takes. There is a different mindset of a kid that leaves a program to go join a 13-0 team and a kid that leaves a program to go join a 2-10 team. There just is. There is. Now you could say, yeah, you're not getting the best. I mean, you're not getting a great player, but it's still Florida State. But and let's never do this roller coaster again, Mike. But a guy that joins a 2-10 football team, that's at least a Jared Verse mindset and belief that he wants to go affect change, not be a part of a already made program. That's different. And again, we'll see how it plays out. But the brotherhood and all that, I don't know how much any of that will matter or how true it all is. I do think last year's team lacked serious leadership from anywhere. And that, I thought there was some guys that thought they were better than they were, that kind of rode the coattails of dudes that were good and were the reasons they were ACC champs. And they just thought they were going to pick it right up. And they thought they were good, and they weren't. And when the season didn't start off the way they wanted, they turtled, man. They just went into a shell.
Your blame pie sounds like a lot more on the guys from the 23 team that returned than I think most of it's from the transfers, but that's maybe for another day.
But there was no – I don't disagree necessarily. The transfers weren't good, but I'm saying they had nobody to lead them, to kick them in the booty when they weren't doing well. There was nobody there. There was nobody to follow. Like, literally, who was the guy to follow? Shaheem? Darius Washington? Like, there was no – the culture might have been built, but your culture also needs really good players. And they didn't have any.
The $200,000 also allows you to be a leader if you want. You know, the $300,000 you're signing for NIL doesn't exclude you from being a leader.
Sure, it doesn't exclude you, but you that doesn't mean you are one either. You don't just get money and decide, okay, that you got your money. You got your money, you're going to play college football at Florida State. You won. You won the race. Meanwhile, you just went 2-10 and were an embarrassment. So, but I just think that mindset of both of them. It's blame all around, man. It's blame all around. They didn't develop well enough, like we talked about yesterday. The starting 22 wasn't any good. Neither was the next 22 or the next 22 got even worse. But then, there was no one there. Like when Braden Fish joined, obviously it's a completely different situation. But think about the leaders on that team and who he was joining and who showed him the way. Who was showing Malik Benson the way? Nobody. Malik Benson was a kid that had 10 catches in his career. And he's all of a sudden, he has to be the number one guy. And he ain't. Like even Micah Pittman, although he didn't have a great career at Florida State or anything, he at least he had a different mindset, man. He was a dog, as we like to say. He was a tough kid, and he brought something with him, and including Johnny Wilson, which helped a lot, which will always be one of his great contributions.
Shout out.
But yeah, so
all right, land the plane.
Okay, that's it. The plane has landed.
You took us over on a nice, comfortable seat over at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, 2475 Appalachia Parkway, cptallybar.com. That's the website. Daily lunch specials from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. weekdays. Comes with a side dish of your choice. Always so delicious. Hope you had fun at trivia last night, everybody. Don't forget Thursday night, bingo night. Friday night, live music from 6 to 9. Go check it out. Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, cptallybar.com, the website. All right, we're back. Mad dash to the finish. We're probably going to go a little bit overtime, but so be it. That's how we do. We grind things out. We'll have a mailbag show going on later this week. Get over to the Tribal Council now. Get your questions in. Get entered into the drawing in generating discussion sparked by Cummins. Win free gear from our great friends over at Cummins. Follow them on Instagram, Cummins Lifestyle. You can't win all the games, apparently, Corey. You can't win all of them. Florida State's perfect stretch ended after 15 straight victories to start the 2025 season. They fall 7-2 against the Gators. Evan Kress, starting pitcher, exits the game abruptly in the second inning, gesturing, pointing to his wrist, forearm area. Hearing the way Link spoke about it after the game, it seems like they're kind of bracing for the absolute worst. The dugout really seemed to take it kind of tough as well, but they hung in there, and it was only a one-run game going to the fifth inning, but the Gators broke it open a little bit there, and Florida State could never really get anything going. I think 1 of 18 I counted from guys 2 through 6 in the lineup, and the one hit was that home run that Miles Bailey had in the ninth inning that was pretty inconsequential. I don't know. People are going to panic. I told you so. They're not as good as you all were saying they were. I'm not all that concerned, but obviously not what you wanted to see against top caliber competition, but with ACC play coming up this weekend, no time to really feel bad about yourself. Also, Jamie Arnold, very likely to pitch this weekend, so that's another good thing.
Oh, that's good to know. That would be a help. I thought it was a guarantee, but that's good to know that it's likely. But, yeah, man, I don't think people listening to this show think that we've been sitting here saying they're really good or they're not as good as we said they were. I think that kind of played out what I was fearful of. This offense hasn't been tested at all, really, with pitching like that. And it was a bunch of dudes throwing mid-90s. I thought Bailey was overmatched at times. I thought B.J. Gibson was overmatched. That's those guys. We'll see how long Gibson, like if Gibson stays in the lineup the whole season. But that was their first taste of that kind of pitching in that environment. Like in travel ball, you're going to see good pitchers. But when you see a good pitcher in travel ball, there's 12 people watching. Or there's 30 people watching. There's families. It's a couple of scouts. It's nothing big. It's not 6,000. So you can get overwhelmed a little bit. And I thought they were overpowered at times. But, yeah, I think, again, like I said yesterday, the strength of this team, in my opinion, is its starting pitching. Now, if it just lost one, that's not great. But the starting pitching, the strength of the team, last year's strength of the team was the lineup. So it would feast in midweek games. The strength of this team is not, even though they were averaging 9 runs a game, we know who they were playing. That was a lot. In one of those games, they had 24 runs or whatever. So this lineup is going to have games like this in the ACC where it just struggles to score because it's not as good as it was last year. It's not anywhere close. But you hope the pitching is good enough. The concern I have is, the offense wasn't good. It's just one game. But the pitching's going to just, this is the pitching you're going to see for the rest of the year. So they got to dial that back up a little bit and get better against better pitching. But then also the bullpen, I mean, yikes. Kinnear was good. The one, Manka or whatever his name is, came in and got one out with the bases loaded. Good for him. But man, Hudson Rowan comes in. Doesn't throw strikes. He got squeezed on a call that should have been a strike 3. John Abraham.
I thought Mason Martinez did admirably considering the circumstances he had.
Well, we know what he is. I like him. He's their most dependable guy. Mason Martinez is their most dependable guy. I think he got 10 outs and gave up 2 runs. Admirable outing for him, especially being pushed into it. John Abraham faced 2 guys, hit them both. Yeah. Joe Charles gave up a 2-run homer, a long one.
But he entered the game with bases loaded, no outs, and got out of it.
He did, I think it was second, third. But yeah, that's the thing. All these guys, they'll give you a good inning, and then it's like the next inning when they come back out. Prescott, the same thing happened to him. He was a little unlucky. I think there was a ground ball that hit the base. It was a double that should have been an out. But it's like a lot of these relievers that I've noticed so far, we're 16 games in, they'll close an inning fine. They'll be dominant. They take a break for 10 minutes and they go back out on the mound again to pitch. It always seems to kind of backfire on these guys. But other than Kinnear, who pitched, I think he pitched 1 2/3. Everybody else either gave up a run or didn't retire a batter. They use 9 pitchers? That's crazy. I know it doesn't help when your starter goes out in the second inning. But yeah, I just Jeff talked about that on Headlines a little bit. Like that's a bit of a worry to me right now. Is who do you depend on in the bullpen? Yeah. Charles, I think. Martinez, Prescott. Although Prescott, I think gave up 4 hits in an inning. Yeah. But some bad pitches. Maybe he was the one that gave up the 2-run homer.
No, Joe Charles did.
But he gave up he had a horrible 2-strike 0-2 pitch that was laced into the left center for a double, I think, that scored a run. He got ahead of the kid 0-2 that just threw it right down the middle. But he was throwing 98. I think that's a guy that they're going to depend on. I think Prescott and Martinez and Charles so far have been the 3 guys that I believe in the most out of that pen. The other guys, it's a grab bag right now, and you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah. All right. Well, that said, we'll be speaking to Luke Clanton later today. We'll get Link on Thursday.
Luke Clanton? What do you mean?
Well, not us. I should say the media in general. They won their event or whatever.
I know. I was saying, are we getting them on Wake Up Warchant?
Sorry.
I got some questions for him.
I shouldn't have phrased it that way.
Yeah.
But Yeah, and check out warchant.com for the latest out of Charlotte, and obviously what Florida State basketball does moving forward here now with Luke Loucks taking over. Irish Show will be having reports from there as he makes his way back down to Tallahassee. We're going to do the mailbag, Jeff Cameron show. I think there's recruiting stuff going on. It never stops, everybody, and I love it. I love it for that.
Oh, and one more thing, because I want to go back to James B. before we leave, because it's a fair point that he made, and I didn't give it. Again, it has something to do with my life. I'm not. Everything's fine. It's just there's something that's bothering me and angering me right now, but I'll get over it. But that's a fair point to bring up, that we want him to change some of the things he practices. Why not change that? I guess my point is I don't think clearly whether we're up there or not has no bearing on the football team, because we were up there when they won 19 straight games. We were also up there when they went 2-10. So that if we're the control, we're not an issue. But that does not mean that he shouldn't. Yes, I agree. Like he should change some of the things he does in practice, because it didn't work. I don't know that you would say people writing about your practices it didn't work. That's the difference. Like if you want to trim special teams from 30 minutes to 20 minutes, all right, to give 10 more minutes to Thomas Castellanos to figure it out, or try some different blocking drills, or more one-on-ones, or more good-on-good. However you want to change up practice, that's fine. But that was my point, is that has a real bearing on the outcome of football games, is practices, the way you practice, how hard you practice, the intensity you have. My point was, and look, I wouldn't care if fans watched it. People watching the practice has no bearing on whether you win or lose your football game, despite what Kirby tells you. Although, Kirby's done all right. I don't think Kirby's winning, though, because the media is blacked out. I think Kirby wins because he gets 100 Philadelphia Eagles every recruiting cycle, apparently. He just gets a bunch of Philadelphia Eagles on his football team. That's why he wins a lot of games.
Jeez. All right, show tomorrow, mailbag, get involved, warchant.com, tribal council, generating discussion, sparked by comments. Can't wait.
Love you, James B.
He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy.